Good afternoon, and thank you for joining this afternoon's Storm and Flood webinar for businesses and not-for-profits. My name is Rachel Nicol, Community Recovery Officer at Lithgow City Council. I would first like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. I would like to extend that respect to all First Nations peoples here today. This afternoon, we're pleased to have joining us Cecilia Hunt, Coordination Officer, Central West Arada and Far West Resilience New South Wales, Russell Meadley, Central New South Wales Business HQ, and from Service New South Wales, Jodie Deesh and Council Relationship Manager, and Sam Howard, Business Concierge of Service New South Wales. This webinar is being recorded for later viewing and questions will be put into the chat. We do have some questions that have been submitted today by those who are unable to make this afternoon's event. This webinar has been recorded in two parts and the information provided is for the Flood and Storm Disaster Recovery Small Business and Not-for-Profit Grant from 9 November 2021. This is for businesses in LGAs included in Disaster Event AGRN 987 only. Lithgow is included in this. However, the storm on 11th of January is AGRN 996. I would now like to hand over to Cecilia Hunt, Resilience New South Wales. Welcome, Cecilia.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you for having me along today, everybody. I'm just going to put up a couple of different slides as I speak. So just to avoid connectivity issues, I'm just going to turn off my camera as I share my slides. So as Rachel introduced me, I'm actually from Resilience New South Wales. I'm based in Bathurst, not far from Lithgow, and I was invited along today to give a brief overview of the recently announced Storm and Flood Disaster Recovery Small Business Grant. And this grant is funded under the Australian Government and the New South Wales Government's disaster recovery funding arrangements. So today I'm going to be giving a brief overview, and there's a couple of items that I want to focus on in today's session. First of all, I'll be briefly covering some of the key aspects of the grant, including the available funding, the types of things covered by the grant, who is eligible to apply, the circumstances in which the grant is not available, and all the information that you need to collect, including evidence of the damage, and put that together before you actually put your application in. So as Rachel indicated, this particular grant is specifically for the 9th of November 2021 storm and flood event. And if you're a small business or non-for-profit organisation and you've been directly impacted by this event, you may be eligible for this grant. Now, this grant is up to $50,000 and it's essentially there to help pay for the costs of 1, cleanup, and 2, the reinstatement of your small business or organisation to get you back up and running. Now, if you were impacted by the flood and storm event in Lithgow on the 11th of January, you can register with Service New South Wales for a callback from a business concierge if new support becomes available. And you can do that either online or by calling Service New South Wales. Next, I just want to touch on some of the different items that are covered by the grant. And I'll just run through some of those. And then if you'd like to look at some of those items and additional items in detail, you'll be able to jump online and have a look at the terms and conditions. So some of the examples, and they're not limited to these, include safety inspections that have been done by tradespeople, cleaning up materials. So that includes the equipment and materials that you've purchased or hired, and also equipment and materials essential for immediately resuming operations for your business. Some of the other items include repairing the premises and some internal fittings as well. Now, if you'd like to look at those details, jump online and you'll be able to look at the terms and conditions for more information. One of the important aspects of the grant is the eligibility for the grant. So before you put your application in, I would encourage you to look at the eligibility in detail to make sure that you meet those requirements. And I'll just run through some of those key aspects of the eligibility for you. First of all, you must be a small business owner or a non-for-profit organisation. Now, if you're a small business, you must hold an active ABN and you must have held that ABN at the time of the disaster. Now, if you're non-for-profit, you'll also need to provide evidence that you've registered as a non-for-profit organisation. In addition to that, you must also have suffered direct damage as a result of that event. You must also be primarily responsible for meeting the costs that you were claiming, and you must be intending to re-establish your small business or non-for-profit organisation within the same area. Now, there are circumstances where the grant is not available as well, and I'll just run through quickly what some of those are. Now, the circumstances when the grant is not available includes if you've successfully received funding or assistance from another source, if you're entitled to make a claim under your insurance policy for the expenses listed, if you've received or entitled to receive the expenses that you're claiming under your insurance policy. And also, really importantly, we've had a couple of people ask this question, the grant is not available to cover loss of income as a result of the disaster. So there's lots more information available in the terms and conditions as well, and that goes into details, especially if you're a sole trader or if you'd like some more information about repairs to buildings and so forth. So I encourage you to look at those terms and conditions in section 3.8. Now, if you have gone through the eligibility requirements and you feel that you meet those and you'd like to move forward with your application, there's a couple of things that you'll need to do. First of all, you'll need to collect some documentation. So the documentation that we ask for you to get together before you put your application in is, firstly, if you've got a My Service New South Wales account, make sure you've got your login details available. You'll also need your proof of identity. And as I've already mentioned, if you're a business, you'll need your ABN. And if you're a non-for-profit, you'll need your evidence of your status. The other additional information you'll need to have on hand is your insurance details, if you've got insurance, and you'll also need your business banking details to add into that application as well. Now, in addition to this documentation, there's some evidence that you'll need to collect as part of your application. Now, as I mentioned before, the grant is up to the amount of $50,000. Now, if you are applying for a grant up to the amount of $15,000, there's a couple of things that you'll need to do. First of all, you'll need to have a list of all the direct damage. You'll also need photographic evidence of the damage. You'll need quotes for replacement works or services. And you'll need other supporting information. So if you already have some receipts or you've had some damage assessments done, you'll need to collate all that evidence. Now, if you're looking to apply for the grant over the amount of $15,000, you'll need to provide invoices for completed work for the entire amount of funding that you're applying for. Now, if I was a cafe and I was impacted by this event, the types of things that I would put on my list may include a cleanup cost. So I may have actually got a quote from a cleaning company and I would attach that quote. And that could be, for example, it might cost you a couple of $1,000s. There might have been a couple of items in my cafe that were damaged that are essential for me for operating, for example, a fridge. And I may have provided an invoice from a wholesale supplier and I've attached that as part of my list as well. And another example would be a coffee machine. So there's lots of items you could list on there, but they're just some examples. And if you'd like to look at some details, there's some more information available online and some samples there for you to look at. Now, once you have all your information available, so get your documents together, get all your evidence and your receipts and your quotes and your invoices, then you get to the application stage. So the application stage includes logging into or just jumping onto the line first to Service New South Wales. You'll see an Apply Now button and you just have all your information ready, and then you just log into your My New South Wales account and you just follow the prompts and it'll step you through. So as long as you have all that information available, ready to go. Now, if you have any problems at all or you can't apply online for any reason, you can ring 137788 and one of the business concierge will step you through the application process as well. Now, if you submit your application online, you'll receive a confirmation email and that'll give you a reference number. Now, if you submit your application and it's missing any information, you'll actually receive notification that there's more information required. Now, I've just popped up on the screen the web link, right, it takes you straight through to the page specifically around this small business grant. And on there, if you scroll right to the bottom and you look through all the information, there's all the additional information that I referred to. So there's a section that's called guidelines, and there's a section on terms and conditions and also a privacy collection notice. So all the information is available online. And Service New South Wales will be speaking later in today's presentation. They'll be answering some of your questions. So if you have any further questions, you can pop them in the chat and we'll follow them up. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Cecilia. And as mentioned, this webinar is being recorded and will be available via the Lithgow Council website. Copies of the resources and slides presented today will also be available. We're now going to go to part 2 of the recording, and I would like to introduce Russell Meadley from Central New South Wales Business HQ to take us into the next part. Thank you.
They happen. It's one of those things that catches people by surprise, and often people aren't prepared for it. So it makes it very difficult to get back on your feet. And it'd be nice to get that government grant from organised from the government, because it was certainly a big disaster down there. That a flash flood like that, it's not a lot of fun, and flooding is so hard to clean up after as well. So I would suggest that if businesses are keen enough, they can approach their local member to push this forward, so that the local member knows that it's a real thing, and get them to jump on board as well, if they haven't already, of course. And that's been done in other disasters that have been around the areas over the last few years. I know that businesses have jumped on board with their local members and really pushed them to get their area categorised appropriately. So that might be worth pursuing as well at this moment in time. But besides the grants, if we don't have grants, well, you've really got to sit back and look at what's happened and start to calculate the damage, of course, and start to mitigate some of the risk that's involved in with having disaster. So start to look at what does that mean financially moving forward? What does it mean for where am I going to operate from? What strategy have I got moving forward with some new premises for staff, for cleaning up, and for potentially getting some funding or finding some funding if you need that. Obviously, you have to contact your insurance company, make sure that you're hopefully everyone will be insured in that situation, but sometimes flood's not covered under insurance, so that can be one of those things that gets omitted from insurance companies' certificates of currency that you just don't notice, or you're underinsured. There's another one that is a real problem under insurance as well. So starting to, I think, collating the information, putting it together, looking at what's happened and where you're going to head with each of those particular things. I think that's important. That's the starting of your planning process to see where you're going to move out of this, whatever that situation might be. So it doesn't have to be a flood. Obviously, we've had the bushfires as well a couple of years ago. Well, we don't want to talk about COVID because it's still here. So I think there's a fair bit for people to work their way through. And one of the big things that I think is an advantage for smaller centres is the community spirit. I mean, not that it doesn't happen in the bigger centres, but I find that the smaller centres like the Lithgow, Cowras, Oberons, Blaney's, those types of places. They're even Mudgee, they all seem to band together very well to help each other out for businesses that might have been struck by a disaster. So there's also that side of it as well, which is really, really great to see in these smaller centres. It seems to gel much quicker than it does in the larger centres like Bathurst, Orange, Dubbo, in that sense. So yeah, it's I think overall there's no one size fits all. It doesn't work like that. It's more about each individual organisation is going to have each different individual needs, and they will work through those risks and strategies differently than each other. Some have got enough funding to help back them up. Others don't have any funding to do that. Others will be covered by insurance, some won't be covered by insurance. So there's quite a vast range of different things to look at. And I guess that's where sometimes having someone from the outside like myself who can come in and sit with you and nut a few of these things out can be useful in helping you set it up and heading you in the right direction on where to now, and sort of putting some time frames on things that need to be addressed urgently, or this one can be put off and put back. That's because that's basically what we do. We're here to help businesses in whatever form that might take. We also have additional resources. If I can't help, there might be one of our other advisors that can help in regards to helping you get online because you weren't online or weren't very, very good at your online stuff, and now you need to be because you don't have a retail presence, just for example, now because your shop got flooded. So we've got digital experts who can help you with that, with websites, with social media, all those sorts of things. I can help with some of that, but we've got those experts who do that day in, day out. We've also got a tourism expert as well. We also have webinars, and then there's just that one-on-ones that I can come in or someone like me can come in and help you, guide you in the right direction, nut a few of those pressing matters out, and start to see what it might look like on paper. Once you get it down on paper, it starts to mean something, and you can start to make it a bit more tangible and make it into something. So yeah, look, that's probably just about it from me. It's a little bit hard to sort of give you all the details about what that might mean because we're not in that situation where I'm talking to someone one-on-one, and it does make a difference whether we've got government grants or we don't have government grants as well, I should say, because if you can get a $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 government grant, that's going to make a hell of a difference to what you do in the clean-up and repair of your business and get it up and running again. It's a pretty important one, I think, to be on top of whether there is money or there isn't money. At this stage, there isn't, so we've got to focus on what we've got, not what we haven't got. Yeah. But that's probably about all I've got at this stage, Rachel.
Thanks very much, Russell. And just to clarify, the Flood and Storm Disaster Recovery Small Business and Not-for-Profit Grant from 9 November is for businesses in LGAs included in disaster event AGRN 987 only. Lithgow LGA is included in 987. However, Flood and Storm on 11th of January 2022 is AGRN 996. Yes. We do also have Service New South Wales joining the call, and if there were any questions, we're happy to be able to ask those. We had some questions that were provided for attendees that weren't able to join this call. Would either of the Service New South Wales representatives like to answer those, or would you like me to repeat some of those questions, or would you like to perhaps provide an overview, and we can also connect individual businesses through to you to ask one-to-one questions.
Hi Rachel, Jodie Beat from Service New South Wales. I'm Council Relationship Manager for the Western Region. I'm not sure if I've turned my video on. I'm not overly familiar with Zoom. I think I have, but I can't see myself. So I'm making an assumption I have.
We can see you. Awesome,
thank you. Look, thanks for having us here today. We hope to be able to provide some clarity around some of those questions. What I can suggest before I delve into those. I just would like to say that even though the residents of Lithgow LGA may not be eligible for this particular grant, I would still suggest for the January flash flooding that occurred, I would still suggest registering for a callback with Service New South Wales and having your details recorded. I know that Resilience New South Wales and your local council are advocating heavily for the Lithgow LGA to perhaps be considered for this particular grant. So if we have your details as well, we will also advocate for that particular inclusion. And if there is a change to the guidelines or the terms and conditions, and these things do change often, we're able to reach out and contact people if they, situations change and they suddenly become eligible for something that they weren't beforehand. So absolutely suggest registering for a callback, and a business concierge will be in touch, and they will be able to support you perhaps with other initiatives that you may be eligible for that you're unaware of. We have a lot of programs that are currently being rolled out that may be applicable to specific small business owners, and that sort of a business concierge can talk to that business owner individually about their unique situation, and they can tailor the support to that particular business. So if you haven't already, as a business owner, reach out to Service New South Wales, and you can get to us through the number that Cecilia provided, the 1377 88, or you can register for a callback on our website, and I can post that link in the chat, or Sam might do that for me. And a business concierge will reach out and get in touch with you. So that's well worth exploring as well. So in relation to the questions that were asked, I do think Cecilia covered some of those when she was delivering her presentation, but I'll work through the ones that you sent us earlier. Rachel, I think the first one was about an insurance policy. So I have an insurance policy and have lodged a claim. However, my insurance company is disputing the details and may reject the claim. Would I be eligible for this grant if the claim under my insurance policy is rejected? So I guess when you look at the terms and conditions and the guidelines, the instruction says the applicant is not eligible for assistance under the scheme if the small business is entitled to receive or has received an amount under a policy of insurance for the relevant costs claimed or for any expenses that are claimable under any insurance policy. So I would understand that to say that perhaps you would be eligible if you weren't covered by that, covered for that claim under insurance. You're not eligible for a claim if there is insurance that will cover the costs of what you're trying to claim. So if insurance won't cover what you're trying to claim, one would make an assumption that you could be eligible. So that would be worth a call to a business concierge to perhaps review in more detail. And while a business concierge can't actually say yes or no, you would be eligible, they will help you to make a determination if you feel you're eligible. At the end of the day, it's the small business owner who needs to determine whether they feel they're eligible or not, and the business concierge will help you work through the terms and conditions and the guidelines. The next question was around receiving a quote for works. However, have been advised that due to supply issues, the costs could rise substantially, and I've estimated an application for this grant now or wait. Is there a closing date? So yes, there is a closing date. The grant's open from 6 months from the announcement date, which I think puts it around 31 July as a closing date. It does, in 7.2 of the guidelines, it tells you that applicants will need to include quotes, estimates or invoices at the point of application where available. Applicants are not required to complete all of the expenditure before applying for the grant. However, invoices for completed work will be required prior to payment of any grant over $15,000. So all applications are manually assessed. So even if the quote that you're putting in is underquoted, then there still should be room. There is room, sorry, you can make multiple applications. So if you claimed $10,000 now and the expense was considerably higher, you can make a subsequent claim for another $15,000 up to the $50,000 limit. So I hope that answers that question. Sam, do you have anything further to add on that one?
That's 100% correct. They can put in multiple applications. Yep.
So next question, I operate multiple small businesses. However, the majority of my income does not come from any of them. Would I be eligible for any financial support? So that's one where I would suggest speaking to a business concierge about your individual situation to understand what other support may be available. To seek funding under this grant, it has to be your primary, I believe, source of income.
In the terms and conditions and also in the eligibility criteria, it does suggest that it's a primary source of income or major source of income.
Source of income. The next question around seeking support for someone to help the business owner complete the application, and if you use an accountant to help, can you apply to have this expense reimbursed? So I guess that's a question for your accountant, if the fee could be offset as a tax deduction perhaps. A business concierge can assist over the phone with the application. And this is also an instance where if it's beyond the scope of what a business concierge can support, we would actually refer you to Business Connect, and Russell could assist in the completion of that application and perhaps the documentation that might need to be supplied as well. Russell and I often speak outside of the work environment, so work related obviously, and support one another in determining what works for customers. So Business Connect is a great advisory service, which we would 100% recommend that customers seek their support in submitting applications as well if the business concierge can't assist over the phone. Next one, our business has suffered a loss of income from COVID and storm damage. How is this assessed for lost income? So as Cecilia mentioned, this grant does not cover loss of income. So again, I would still suggest reaching out to a business concierge, registering for a callback, and they may be able to support you with other support that's available and direct you to other services that you may be eligible for that you're perhaps unaware of. And the last one that I saw, I'm needing to move my business online because my premises needs repairing. Would the cost of establishing a website be covered? So I scoured the guidelines and terms and conditions, and this exact scenario is not covered. It's perhaps something that we would need to delve into in more detail. I believe, you know, at face value, it looks like it should be covered. My thought on that was, if you have a premises that needs repairing, the cost of cleanup and repair is covered under the grant. So perhaps you would use the cost of the support that is available, financial support, to repair your premises. And I'm not sure whether that would, you know, use up the entire sum that's available, and then we can delve a little more deeply into if the cost of establishing a website would be covered.
Business continuation.
Yeah, that I feel that it should be. Again, it's not up to Service New South Wales in our team to decide, because it's going to a manual assessment team and they make the ultimate decisions. I feel it would be included, but I can't say a hard yes. If Sam, what have you had experience with?
With regards to that one, we've seen that it has helped out in the past for other grants. Specifically this one, though, I believe that it will need to show that that is going to be a part of your ongoing business structure and business plans there, to have that online as well as a shop front. The shop front definitely, as what Jodie was mentioning, that can definitely get some support for the damages and things that was done during the floods and stuff like that, those storms. But other than that, it needs to be looked into a bit further. Yep.
So Rachel, that covers all the questions that you had for us in advance. Is there any that have come in throughout the meeting?
There's no additional questions that I can see at this stage, but perhaps a reminder that anyone can reach out and, as you've mentioned, register for that callback or an appointment with the business concierge, and importantly, discuss each person's individual circumstances.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Wonderful. Well, in that case, we might say a big thank you to all our speakers. We sincerely appreciate your time and the information that has been shared this afternoon. The webinar and resources will be made available via the Lithgow Council website, or please contact Lithgow Council for further information. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining us and have a good afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks
Rachel.
all.